Praise the Lord, my beautiful, blessed souls. Back with another word. We are bruised and not broken. Honey, a lot going on. Well, August 14th and 15th was overcoming and extraordinary. We are in 2nd Samuel chapter 2. So, a lot is going on. Let's get into it. August 14th says, overcoming. How can I overcome the problems I face in life? Too often, our own limitations cause us to doubt God's ability to work through us. We make excuses for why we think things won't happen instead of thinking about how they might happen, especially when we follow an almighty God. The next time you think a promise from God is impossible, or you are facing a seemingly impossible problem, look at the issue again from God's perspective and ask Him to do the impossible in you. Now, God's response to this is anything too hard for the Lord? This is in Genesis 18 and 14. Then it says, I am the Lord, the God of all the peoples of the world. Is anything too hard for me? Jeremiah 32 and 27. Zechariah 8 and 6 says, this is what the Lord Almighty says. All this may seem impossible to you now, a small and discouraged remnant of God's people. But do you think this is impossible for me, the Lord God Almighty? Now, Matthew 19:26 says, Jesus looked at them intently and said, humanly speaking, it is impossible. With God, everything and all things is possible. Now, Luke 1:37 says, nothing is impossible with God. So now, in our own selves and in our own strengths, of course, we are not able to do these things. And this is why we have to give God the glory, because we ourselves are not able to do it. Any things that we are getting through and going through and overcoming is because God has given us the mind, the strength, the abilities, and all of these things to do so in the spiritual and natural realms. Because other than that, how will we be able to move forward and go on? A lot of things in life we are not, some things we can handle, but a lot of things we cannot handle on our own. This goes to let us know the need for God and our human abilities, that we're limited. And that we need to rely on Him. Now, August 15th says, extraordinary. I'm just an ordinary person. There's nothing special about me. Why would God use me? While God sometimes uses miracles and angels, He more often chooses ordinary people doing ordinary things to accomplish something extraordinary. Pay attention to this, because this is His pattern. One day, God may call you to do something extraordinary. But meanwhile, get to work serving and obeying Him. Then you'll be ready when He calls. And this is what the wait looks like. When you're waiting, just not just sitting around, you're actually actively waiting. You're reading your word, you're doing whatever to actively prepare yourself for whatever it is God is gonna eventually reveal to you, your assignment, your purpose, or whatever it is you're supposed to be here to do. Now, Acts 4:13, God's response to this is, the members of the council were amazed when they saw the boldness of Peter and John, for they could see that they were ordinary men who had no special training, but they also recognized them as men who had been with Jesus, and this is the difference. Romans 12:16, live in harmony with each other. Don't try to act important, but enjoy the company of ordinary people. 1 Samuel 16:11-12. Samuel asks, are these all the sons you have? There is still the youngest, Jesse replied, but he's out in the fields watching the sheep and goats. The Lord says, this is the one, anoint him. That was David, remember? And in 1 Corinthians 1:27, it says, God deliberately chose things the world considers foolish in order to shame those who think they are wise. And He chose those who are powerless to shame those who are powerful, or those who think they are powerful. This is why when we look at the world and we see certain things the way that they are, yeah, God used the little minute people, the ones everybody says was the nothings and nobodies. Those are the ones that He's using for His, because with Him, He is the one that's going to make them extraordinary. It's not them on their own. So let's get into it. We're going to look at this. We're going to break it down, because as we can see, from the time David was born or the time David was anointed, this is what he was put here to do. And although on the outside surface he was very ordinary, but with God made him extraordinary. So now, 2 Samuel chapter 2. After this, David inquired of the Lord. This is after all went on in the last chapter. Shall I go up into any of the cities of Judah? And the Lord said to him, go up. David said, to which shall I go up? And he said, to Hebron. So David went up there, he and his two wives also, Ahinoam of Jezreel and Abigail, the widow of Nabal of Carmel. And David brought up his men who who were with him, everyone with his household, and they lived in the towns of Hebron. And the men of Judah came, and they anointed David king over the house of Judah. And when they told David, it was the men of Jabesh Gilead who had buried Saul. So David sent messages to the men of Jabesh Gilead and said to them, "May you be blessed by the Lord, because you showed this loyalty to Saul your Lord and buried him," meaning properly, because remember they was trying to, exploit him. "Now may the Lord show steadfast love and faithfulness to you, and I will do good to you because you have done this good thing. So now therefore let your hands be strong and be valiant, for Saul your Lord is dead, and the house of Judah has anointed me king over them." So now, we're looking at that. So now, but Abner, the son of Ner, commander of Saul's army, took Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim. And he made him king over Gilead and the Asherites, and Jezreel, and Ephraim, and Benjamin, and all Israel. So Ishbosheth, the Saul's son, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel, and he reigned 2 years. But the house of Judah followed David, and the time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. So this is what it is. They're dividing and conquering. And this is what the enemy will do with you, with your family, with whatever's going on. They first will get you, at each other to divide you. And then this is what it's going to be. So Abner, the son of Ner, and the servants of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, went out from Mahanaim to Gibeon. And Joab, the son, look at these eyes, Zeruiah, the servants of David, went out and met them at the pool of Gibeon. And they sat down, the one on the one side of the pool and the other on the other side of the pool. And Abner said to Joab, "Let the young men arise and compete before us." And Joab said, "Let them arise." Then they arose and passed over by number 12 for Benjamin, and Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and 12 of the servants of David. And each caught his opponent by the head and thrust his sword his opponent's side. So they fell down together. Therefore that place was called Hekah Hezerim, which is at Gibeon. And the battle was very fierce that day. And Abner and the men of Israel were beaten before the servants of David. So what they did was they got like 12 and 12, and they got them on each side to fight. Because remember, they're split now. Israel's split. David's king over this side, and Abner is king over that side. Well, the son of Saul, Ishbosheth. So they got together, to try to see whose men was going to win. So they have to have the great big battle, let them decide, like a penny toss. But what happened was both of them ended up dying on both sides. So that just made it worse. I'm quite sure David is probably like, what is going on now? Because he thought after all of that, he was just going to get the throne, all them years of fighting Saul, and that be that. So this still didn't exactly turn out the way that he thought it was going to turn out. Well, let's just pay attention. And the three sons of Zeruiah were their Joab, Abishai, and Asahel. Now Asahel was a swift of foot as a gazelle. And Asahel pursued Abner, and as he went, he turned neither to the right hand nor to the left, following Abner. Then Abner looked behind him and said, "Is it you, Asahel?" And he answered, "It is." Abner said to him, "Turn aside to your right hand or to your left, and seize one of the young men and take his spoil." But Abishai would not turn aside from following him. And Abner said again, "Asahel, turn aside from following me. Why should I strike you to the ground? How then could I lift up my face to your brother Joab?" But he refused to turn to the side. Therefore Abner struck him in the stomach with the butt of his spear, so that the spear came out at his back, and fell there and died where he was, and he fell there where he was, and all who came to the place where Asahel had fallen and died, and they stood still. But see, this is what I'm saying. He was being too, flamboyant with it. And he wasn't using righteous discernment and all that. Why? Because these was battles he wasn't supposed to be fighting. And this is why we have to be very careful with what we're fighting, who we're fighting, how. Because if it's not our battle, we shouldn't be fighting it. But Joab and Abishai pursued Abner, and as the sun was going down, they came to the hill of Ammah, which lies before Giah, on the way to the wilderness of Gibeon. And the people of Benjamin gathered themselves together there behind Abner, and became one group, and took their stand on the top of a hill. Then Abner called to Joab, "Shall the sword devour forever? Do you not know that the end will be bitter? How long will it be before you tell your people to turn from the pursuit of their brothers?" And Joab said, as God lives, if you had not spoken, surely the men would not have given up the pursuit of their brothers until the morning. So Joab and blew the trumpet, and all the men stopped and pursued Israel no more, nor did they fight anymore. And Abner and his men went all that night through Arabah. They crossed the Jordan and marched in the whole morning. They came to Mahanaim. Joab returned from the pursuit of Abner, and when he had gathered all the people together, there were missing from David's servants 19 men besides Ashiel. But the servants of David had struck down of Benjamin 360 of Abner's men, and they took up Ashiel and buried him in the tomb of his father, which was at Bethlehem. And Joab and his men marched all night, and the day broke upon them at Hebron. So this is what this is looking like. So this is just getting to be so much and out of control. It really is. So David and Ishbosheth begin their long fight for the crown of Israel. Saul's son Jonathan, Abinadab, and Malchishua were killed in the battle with the Philistines. So Saul was wounded by the archers, but he fell on his sword so he wouldn't have to endure the capture and humiliation by his army. So when David learned this, he wrote the emotional lament mourning the loss and celebrating the lives of his king and his best friend. Saul's death clears the way for David to return to Judah. He asks God what to do. This is what it is. He's asking God what to do. These other people are just doing what they want to do. He asks God what to do and follows the Lord's instruction to take his men and family to Hebron. Soon after David arrives, the elders of Judah anoint him king over the tribe. David settles into Hebron as his capital. Now, after Saul and his sons died, the Philistines hanged their bodies on the wall in Beth-shan. Now, the men of Jabesh Gilead risked their lives to retrieve their bodies and properly bury them. Now, David sends the message to Jabesh Gilead, giving them thanks and blessings for their loyalty to Saul. David is likely hoping to secure their support for his kingship. 5 years into David's reign in Hebron, Abner, Saul's cousin and his commander of his army, takes Ishbosheth, one of Saul's remaining sons, and installs him as king over the rest of Israel. Abner's future actions suggest that he's setting up Ishbosheth as a temporary puppet to be controlled. Now, see, this is what people will do when they want to control you. They will allow you to think you're in control, put you in these positions, let you think, you're and not. They're just using you. And people pay attention because being needed and being loved is two different things, okay? Because people will think that because someone needs them, it's love. No, because the moment there's no need for you, there's no more. You see what I'm saying? So love and being needed is two different things. Being needed is one thing. Being loved is a totally different thing. So Abner meets David's army and Commander Joab. This is near Gibeon, a neutral city inhabited by a Gentile tribe that once kicked Joshua into letting them live in peace. I remember that. Scripture doesn't specify why Gibeon was chosen, although it seems the tabernacle was moved there after Saul's massacre of all the priests at Nob. Okay, I remember that. So the generals begin by calling 12 soldiers, each to face a soldier from the other side. This is where they did the battle. It's possible they were hoping for a decisive win on either side, one or the other, so they wouldn't have to go to the big battle. But all 24 men ended up killing each other, leaving no decisive victor. So the ensuing battle is fierce. Amidst the battle, Joab's brother and Ashiel sprints after Abner. When Abner recognizes Ashiel, he tells the young man to go back and collect plunder from the battlefield. When that doesn't work, Abner asks Ashiel to stop so he won't have to kill him. He asks how could he look at Joab in the face if that happened. Ashiel ignores Abner's pleas. He is almost caught up to Abner when Abner stops suddenly and thrusts the butt of his spear backwards. This end of the spear may have been just pointed enough to be struck upright in the ground. So the thrust from Abner goes into and through Ashiel's stomach. Ashiel falls dead and Abner runs on. By the time Ashiel's two brothers, Joab and Abishai, take up the pursuit, Abner has regrouped with his fighters. They prepare to make a last stand against Joab's men, who arrive at sunset. Abner pleads with Joab to break off the battle, and Joab agrees, and the armies return home. No more bloodshed. Because remember, all of these battles, people are dying, on both ends. This is what war is. And we don't think about that. Families, all of that, losing their men, their husbands, fathers. So we have to pay attention to this. By the time Ashiel's two brothers, Joab and Abishai, take up the pursuit, Abner has regrouped. They prepared to make a stand. The last stand of Joab's men arrive at sunset. Oh, okay, hold on. Okay, so then the two sides continue to fight for years. David's side grows stronger while Ishbosheth gets weaker. Eventually, Abner will defect and Ishbosheth will be murdered. Israel will accept David as their king peaceably, but Joab won't forget. He will murder Abner for killing his brother, so that's going to go further down. We don't want to get that far into it, but we're going to break this chapter down. We're going to look and see, all of the things that are going on in this chapter, and we're going to look at these things, and we're just going to go and just kind of break them down and look at them. So just a lot going on. We see folks fighting battles they don't need to. We see we see David having to continue to fight himself after he fought his own battle. I'm quite sure he thought everything was over. He was going to be king, but as you can see, that is still not the case. And this is what it looks like when you're trying to move forward in life and you're trying to do things, the blockages. And I tell folks, because whoever's out there, whatever's going on, that does not want you to get to where you need to be, it's spiritual, it's natural. This is what it looks like. It is not an easy task. It seems like consistent battles. Now, David had paid the respect to the memory of Saul, his prince, and Jonathan, his friend. And what he did was much his praise as theirs. He is now considering what it is to be done next. Saul is dead now, therefore David must arise. By direction from God, he went up to Hebron and was there anointed king. He returned to thanks to the men of Jabesh Gilead for burying Saul. Now, remember, they decided to do what they did. So now, hold on, I already read that part. I don't want to go further in. So let's look at it. Let's break it down. We see these are one, he has to overcome. That's why overcoming. And two, extraordinary situations, because as we can see, God keeps on allowing him to have the strength, one, to get through the things, get over these things, to deal with these things, and to move forward, because it's not easy just having battle after battle after battle. It is not an easy thing, and God has to give us the strength to stand, to continue to move on, because if not, as humans, we wouldn't be able to do this possibly in our own strength. And it says in the word that he will give us the strength. So now, 2 Samuel chapter 2. We're going to break down chapter 2, break it down, lay it in structure. We're going to look at it spiritually, intelligently. We're going to break it down. Now, and showing how, this chapter sets the stage for David's rise and the unraveling of Saul's house. Now, this is a key takeaway. David's kingship is supposed to begin. Saul's lineage fractures, and the nation of Israel becomes divided. So this is what happens. This is the first visible manifestation of prophecy that David's house will rise and Saul's house will fall. Now, David thought he was just going to, of course, get it. But as you can see, not so. Not just that clear and cut and to the point. So now, David becomes king, but not over all of Israel, but only over Judah. So after Saul's death, David asks God whether he should move back into Israel, and God tells him to go onto Hebron. Why? Because God already knew stuff probably was going on, where the tribe of Judah anoints him king. This is where he sends him, where he's celebrated and not tolerated. Pay attention to that. Why? Because those other people did not want him there. They were just going to tolerate him. They're against him still because of Saul. So this is not yet his full kingship. It is a partial. This is what this is. And it's sad because he's fought so hard. But it's a partial, it is regional, it is tribal, it is coronation, it is small. So it is not on the grandiose scale that he thought he was going to be on, especially after all of the battle. Because when we are battling so much, we expect to get eventually to the place that God has promised us. And this is what this is. So David honors the men of Jabesh Gilead. He sends a message of blessing for them for burying Saul. This shows David's political wisdom. He honors Saul publicly to stabilize the nations, meaning and show that he is not an enemy of Saul's supporters, meaning he knew that this was the old way, this is what they were. They were, followers of Saul. And we have to understand when, the hands are changing, that it is going to be a transition. These people have to get used to him being king over them, and he has to acknowledge their old king and with respect. So Abner elevates Ishbosheth. Abner, Saul's military commander. He takes Ishbosheth, Saul's surviving son, and makes him king over the northern tribes of Israel. So this creates two different kings and two different capitals and two different governments. Now they're all one, but they're separated and divided. And this is what this looks like. If the enemy can divide and conquer you, this is what it will look like. Whether it's you, your family, your marriage, your friends, this is what it's going to look like. Your church, whatever. This is what it's going to look like. So you'll be at each other. Now the civil war begins. Abner's men, Israel, and Joab's men, Judah, meet at Gibeon. It is a contest between the young warriors to escalate into a full battle to see, to keep them from going into one. But the death of Ashiel, it didn't happen because remember, they ended up killing each other off on both ends, so there was a stalemate. No one won on either end. It's like flipping a coin and saying, oh, heads or tails. But in this, folks died again. So the death of Ashiel, Joab's brother, chases Abner. Abner warns him repeatedly to stop. Ashiel refuses. Abner kills him. This death becomes the seed of future revenge. This is what it is. Future bloodshed and future instability. Why? Because eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. They want to avenge, the other. And we get it. But at the same token, this was him on his own. God didn't tell him to do this. And so, you see, this was something that he was kind of like, what they call it, on his own, just kind of doing his own thing. So now, we're going to look at the house of Judah, which is David. Remember, this is the tribe of where eventually Christ is going to come through. David is crowned in Hebron, the ancestral territory of Judah. Judah recognizes David immediately, showing alignment between David's calling and his tribal identity. David's rise is organic, it is not forced, and this is what we can see. When we look at certain stuff and we see that folks is rising, it's just normal, they're somewhere by themselves and you think nothing's happening, but they're just rising wherever they are. It is organic, it is not fake, it is not forced. It is just a natural progression that God has where people, seeds go on the ground and they eventually grow. Now, the kingship begins with obedience. He asks God first and honors this. And then he blesses Saul's supporters. Why? Because he wants to let them know, yes, because eventually he's going to be over them, but you got to acknowledge it. So this shows a lineage built on submission, humility, and divine timing. This is what we have to pay attention to. Saul's lineage is the house of Benjamin, so we got to pay attention to that. Saul's house is a propped up, artificial one, meaning by Abner. It is not God ordained, it is man-made. And this is the difference between what God does and what man does. Ishbosheth is king only because Abner installs him, not because God did. There is no divine anointing, no prophetic backing, and no tribal unity. So this is them doing what they want to do. Saul's lineage continues through human effort, not through God's will. Remember, God never originally wanted them to have a king. They wanted a king and he became the first one, and God already told them about all of this. So now this is them getting the consequences of their own actions because he gave them what they wanted. Why? Because you can't stop people from living in free will. People say, oh, how does God? God knows everything because there's free will. Whatever way you choose, whatever thing, there's always cause and effect. So this shows lineage built on preservation, fear, and political maneuvering. So this is what it was. So this is them maneuvering through human effort, not through God's will. Okay. So now the two houses represent two spiritual patterns and two separate sides, right? The house of David, which is God ordained. It is rooted in covenant. It moves through obedience and it rises gradually but permanently. So it's not swift. It's not quick. Now, house of Saul is man-made. It is rooted in insecurity. It moves through force and it declines gradually but inevitably. So when we see this happening, why? Because it's the old system. God is getting rid of that old system and he's installing a new one. He had already told them that. Why? Because they weren't listening. They was doing their own thing. This is the problem. Now, spiritual warfare layer. Division is the enemy's first strategy. We always know this. Israel is split in north versus south, Saul versus David, Abner versus Joab. Division always appears when God is shifting leadership. Now, please understand this. This happens, like I said, it could be at your job, it could be with your friends, it could be in your spouse, it could be with your family, it could be with anything you're seeing, it could be with your business. It could be with a lot of different things where you see 1 minute y'all are working together and the next minute something happens and it's torn completely apart. And this is not accident. This is by design because remember, between the enemy and he uses others that already have this, envy, covetousness, selfishness, jealousy in their spirits, and this is what happens behind you, behind whatever it is you're trying to accomplish in life. So you have to pay attention to it. So Abner represents the spirit of self-preservation leadership. He is not following God. He is protecting his position. This spirit keeps old systems alive even after God has moved on and removed them, meaning he is no longer there. And they're just doing their own thing. Now, Ashiel's death represents the danger of zeal without wisdom. This is what I was looking for, zeal. Now, Ashiel is fast, he's gifted, and he's bold, but he ignores the warnings. And this is the spiritual pattern of running ahead of God, meaning not being in line, chasing battles that are not assigned to you, dying in conflicts that weren't yours. And this is what this looks like. This is why discernment has to be taken care of. You have to have it, and you have to ask God, because if you're just out here with zeal and you're fighting all of these stuff that you shouldn't be, you got to know where you are in the Lord, know where you are within, because you're not up here. Other people are up there doing whatever they're doing in their callings. They may have been walking with the Lord longer. Whatever it is that they're doing, you have to respect it. They may know more than you, have more wisdom, more discernment. Why? Because their work has been longer. So you don't take anything away from that. You just stay in your lane and let them do what they're doing. You learn from them. They learn from you. This is what this is. So David's restraint is spiritual maturity. David does not rush to take the whole kingdom. He waits for God to expand him. And this is what this looks like. Remember, we're not running ahead of God. We're not running out there to impress people. We're not trying to get, all of this extra stuff. That's not what we're doing. We're not trying to outshine other people, bring them down. That's not what we're doing. We're not in competition. Everybody's doing what they're doing. We're not chasing battles that we're not assigned to, and we're not going to die in conflicts that weren't ours. This is how we keep from doing that. So now politically and culturally, there are two capitals, Hebron, which is David, and Mahanaim, which is Ishbosheth. Now this is the first time Israel has two governments. Tribal loyalty. Judah supports David because shared ancestry, shared prophecy, and shared history. The northern tribes support Ishbosheth because they fear instability, they fear Abner. No, they trust Abner. And they're used to Saul's dynasty, meaning the old way of doing things. And a lot of times, this is what happens. Things get broken up because it has to be. We have to be moving on, and the old systems are not usable. Some things that we were doing when I was younger, we don't use those things anymore. We have to get up with the new stuff. Some stuff are foundational that doesn't go anywhere, but then there's other stuff that, is interchangeable. So we have to be paying attention to these things. And when it comes to fear and instability, you can't make decisions with that. When you have no trust, you can't do nothing with that, So, and Saul's dynasty was his dynasty, but he had a lot of issues. There was a lot of cracks in his dynasty. The main one was he was doing his own thing, wasn't listening to the Lord. He was, putting himself to do other things. The battle of Gibeon, this was not just a fight. It was a test of legitimacy. Whichever side won will be seen as having God's favor. Judah won. Why? Because God already was letting them know, listen, this is what it is, Now, prophetically, what this chapter sets in motion, David's rise is slow, but it is unstoppable. So you always think that because things are slow and we don't see it, it's not happening, but that's not the truth. Stuff that's buried is growing. It's underneath there. We don't see it, but it is growing. It's doing what God has called it to do. And when it's season time, it will sprout. It will grow. It will, So he starts with the one tribe and he will end with the entire nation. So this is what David's rise looked like, because it is unstoppable. It's slow, but it's unstoppable. It's just going to progressively, get to where it needs to be on its own. It's not forced. Saul's house is collapsing from the inside out. Why? Because Ishbosheth is weak. Remember, he didn't appoint himself. This wasn't part of his plan. Abner is the real power. He's the one that's going to use him as a puppet. This is why he put him there, because he knew that he had the bloodline to do it. He himself didn't. So he puts him there. This is how people use you for their own personal gain. You have to pay attention. You have to be paying attention. They'll manipulate you. They'll bring you, make you think, oh, I'm promoting you, I'm giving you this, when it ain't about you. It's about them. And they want to control you and use you in that seat. And that's the only reason they're giving it to you, so that they can use you as a puppet. And this is what this looks like. It's not about Ishbosheth. It's about Abner. He wants to control everything from the sides. He only put him there because he don't know what he's doing, and he wants to run him. So the alliance will soon break. Of course it's going to break. Eventually that's going to come to the light. When someone's, just using you for their own good, and they're manipulating you and controlling you. And this is what people like to do, so that they can do what they want to do through you. You see what I'm saying? Have their way through you. Joab versus Abner becomes a generation feud. Ashiel's death creates a blood debt. This feud will shape future chapters. Why? Because the vengeance will start. Why? Because the brother was killed and they're going to try to avenge it. We're going to talk about it later. We're not going to get into it now. But God is shifting the nation. The chapter shows that the old system is dying. The new system is emerging. The nation is in transition. The spiritual atmosphere is unstable. This is what it means. They're fearful because things are not set in stone. This is transition. And a lot of times it can be fearful when you don't know what's going to happen and things are different. Things are changing. And with change comes different, It's not going to be what it was. We're going into something new. You got to get ready and get changed with it. You got to adjust. And that's just what we have to do. So what this means spiritually is God often starts our elevation in the Hebron season, meaning small, local, and quiet. It's not the full promise, but it's the beginning of it. So remember, God says, never, small beginnings. Every calling has a counterfeit competitor. Wow. This was something I was like, ugh. Just like Ishbosheth's kingship opposed David's, there will always be a false version, a man-made version, a premature version, and a distracting version. Wow. That says a lot. So that is every calling has a counterfeit competitor. Boo. Pay that attention. Ooh, wow. That was really good. And that's what it's going to look like. A false version, a man-made version, a premature version, and a distracting version. So that's what they're going to look like. Honor protects your elevation. David honored Saul's supporters. Honor is the spiritual key that unlocks territories. So, not every battle is yours. Remember this. And then honoring, because we don't honor people and we need to. Positions mean a lot. Wherever God has us in life means a lot, and whether we like each other, agree with each other all the time, we still should respect each other and what we got going on, and not belittle and make light of, whatever each other has going on. Not every battle is ours. Asahel died chasing a fight that wasn't his. It wasn't assigned to him. Discernment is protection. We have to be careful of this because a lot of times we want to jump out here and get into stuff that we either don't have the position for, the learning, the training for. This is not good. We don't need to be doing that because we put ourselves out there to be harmed because we're doing stuff we shouldn't be doing. Those are the things God needs to do until you are able to do those things, until he puts you in those positions, if that is even your purpose and assignment to do those things. You see what I'm saying? So this will be the difference. Division often precedes promotion. When God shifts you, relationships, environments, and systems around you begin to split. You can see a lot of things just kind of, falling apart. That's what it will look like. And you be like, well, dang, what is going on here? And that's usually a sign when things are just starting to go crazy, that God is just tearing something down to build something else better. And this is what it's going to look like. Usually it is a process. A lot of times it is not for the weak. So we want to look at overcoming and extraordinary because we see the overcoming and we see the extraordinary situations that are going on here. So we want to break it down. Overcoming and extraordinary, because the chapter is full of hidden victory patterns that show how God builds an overcomer and how he positions someone for extraordinary influence. So we're going to look at these themes and we're going to make sure we look at them. Overcoming and extraordinary. David's rise is not explosive. It is quiet, but it's overcoming still. It is extraordinary. Destiny begins in ordinary obedience. So it's small places. Remember that. Overcoming later, what David had to push through. Overcoming delayed. Remember, backwardness, delay, stagnation. These are the things. We don't want to be going backwards or standing still in the same circles. We want to be moving forward. So backwardsness, delays, and stagnation, meaning you're not able to move forward. We've got to pay attention. David waited years after being anointed before becoming king. This shows him overcoming what? Disappointment, confusion, the temptation to self-promote. Right, to say, well, never mind, I'm not going to wait on God. I'm going to go ahead and do my own thing. The temptation to rush God. This is what this looks like. So when we're going through all of these things and things are not going, the way we thought, we got to pay attention. So he asks God again what to do. And this is the posture of someone who refuses to let delay turn into discouragement. This is what we were talking about before, because sometimes we do get in times when we feel it's these things are going on like this. Overcoming rejection. Saul hunted David. Israel didn't immediately accept him. And this is what things are going to be, and that's rejection. Only one tribe crowned him. The rest of them, remember, there's 12. The rest of them didn't. David overcame the pain of being overlooked, being misunderstood, being chosen by God, but not yet chosen by people. This is a spiritual reality of many called leaders or called people by God. So we have to pay attention to the patterns, because God uses the ordinary, the lowly, the ones he said, the ones that are overlooked, the ones that nobody says is anything. This is what this looks like. Overcoming division. The nation is split. David's calling is contested. Abner installs a rival king. Remember, this is what we're talking about with the competitors thing. And so David overcomes division by staying focused, refusing to retaliate, refusing to fight for a throne God already promised him. There's no reason to fight for whatever is already yours. You just let God do what he's doing. He lets God fight the battle of legitimacy, exactly, because God will do it how he wants in his timing, because it was his promise that he gave to him in the first place. So it's not, he's just supposed to wait for God to do it and be obedient in the meantime, in the between time. Overcoming the temptation to prove himself. This is another one. David could have marched into Israel and taken the throne by force. Instead, he moves to Hebron, accepts partial kingship, honors soul supporters, and waits for God to expand him. People think this is being weak, it's being meek, it's being stupid. It is not. This is overcoming ego, ambition, and impatience, because, see, this is what man tells us we're supposed to do. So it's to look a certain way, act a certain way, be a certain way, do a certain thing. If it ain't rituals, it's religion, it's religious practices. This is what they tell us it has to be this way. That's not necessarily the case. We see when Jesus came, he got rid of a lot of that. He just tore a lot of that down. He let them see that that is not what that was about. Overcoming the weight of leadership. David begins leading Judah while the rest of Israel is unstable. He overcomes fear of failure, fear of civil war, fear of stepping into responsibility, of course, and he leads with wisdom, restraint, and spiritual sensitivity. Of course, because I'm quite sure he's learning. He's come a long way from being the little boy that was in the field with the sheep and the goats. You know, he went from that to killing Goliath, to all these years of Saul, to battling. He's grown up, but he's not quite where God wants him to be. So he's not where he used to be, but he's not where he wants to be or where God has him to be yet. So he's still in process. And so I'm quite sure this would, be coming about in his life, because even with my own self, going through life and looking at it, it's like, and not really knowing or understanding, what is going on, fear of failure, fear of war, fear of stepping into new responsibility and what that comes with, being able to handle it, deal with it, process it, and to do it God's way and to do it the way he wants. Not just do it, but do it wonderfully, do it with excellence. You don't want to just do stuff and just half do it. You want to do it and do it with excellence. And it's not about what here says, it's about what he says and what happens after we leave here, because certain things we get here. But it's, you want to hear that, well done, my good and faithful servant, when you get up there. You want him to be proud and pleased of you and what what he had you do here. You accomplished it, you did it well. Extraordinary later, what makes this chapter supernatural? Extraordinarily obedience. Okay, David doesn't move until he asks God, shall I go up? And this is what we have to do, because a lot of times we be wanting to do things, I'm telling you, and we be wanting to be like, man, forget this. But waiting on God, no matter what is going on, it's just, listen, this is what it is. It takes a lot. So this is extraordinary because most leaders move first and pray later. David's obedience is what makes his rise unstoppable. He prays first, wait on God, and then he, do what God says. Extraordinary honor. David blesses the men who buried Saul. This is extraordinary because Saul tried to kill him. Remember, loving your enemies, doing well with them in spite of them. This is what, not easy. And a lot of times these same enemies, Saul was, remember, his people. They are all Israelites. It's crazy. You see, your own people, your own family, your own brethren, your own siblings, your own cousins, whatever. Honor in the face of hurt is supernatural trait. It opens doors that no talent can open. Pay that very much attention. Folks may think they have a whole lot over you. But in some areas they may. But that's what they have. You have what you have, and that's that. And no one can take who you are and what you have. Just like no one can take that from them. So we just have to acknowledge each other with whatever it is we carry and have. And that's it. I mean, this is not supposed to be a competition. Extraordinary timing. David becomes king exactly when Saul's house collapses. Not early, not late. God does things right on time. Why? Because you can't pick the fruit off too early, because it will, not be good. And you can't let it sit there and over-ripen, because it still won't be any good. So you got to do it just right. That's why God always says he doesn't, come when you want him, but he's right on time because he has to be right on time for things to do what it needs to do. So this shows God's timing is surgical. God positions his chosen at the precise moment. Extraordinary destiny is tied to divine timing, not human strategy. Ooh. Extraordinary restraint. David does not retaliate against Abner or Ishbosheth. He does not force unity. He does not chase validation. You got to pay attention to these things because we probably have fought with these things, trying to have these things, wanting these things when they're not good for us. And we don't really need to have it. Restraint is extraordinary because it shows confidence in God, emotional maturity, and spiritual intelligence. So we have to pay attention. This is what we need to be doing. Extraordinary protection. Ashel dies chasing Abner, but David's men are protected. The battle ends before it destroys Judah. God limits the damage. Exactly. This shows extraordinary divine protection over David's house. Why? Because David is the one in God's will. He is the one that God has his hand and approval of. He is the one God is with. The rest of them are against him, so they're against God. This is what this is. So, extraordinary positioning. Hebron is not glamorous. It is not a capital. It is not the center of power, but it is safe, it's ancestral, it's prophetic, and it's strategic. So when we're looking at where we're living and what's going on in our lives or where God has us positioned, it may look just like this. God positions may not be good or what we want them to be. God positions David in a place that looks small, but it is spiritually loaded. That's what that's about. Extraordinary destiny often begins in places that look very ordinary. This is what we're just saying. Combine insight, overcoming extraordinary. Now, overcoming produces extraordinary elevation. David's extraordinary kingship is built on overcoming rejection, overcoming delay, overcoming division, overcoming insecurity, overcoming the temptation to self-promote. Extraordinary people are simply ordinary people who overcame extraordinary pressures. Something like that go over your head. Extraordinary destiny requires extraordinary character. David's character in this chapter is humble, honoring, obedient, patient, and wise. This is why God trusted him with the kingdom in the first place. So this is why he was chosen. A lot of people think, because this one looks pretty and that one looks nice, and it's not the outer, it's the inner. God is working with what is on the inside, what he put on the inside of them from their birth. This is what they were born here to do. Extraordinary outcomes begin with small obedient steps. David's first act as king is not war. It is not conquest. It is not expansion. It is sending a blessing. Extraordinary leaders start with extraordinary kindness. Why? Because you have to be understanding to whatever is going on your end and the others when you're trying to make, things work. And this is what that looks like. So because God sees us as all his children, and although we mess up, he doesn't want us killing each other and doing all these wicked things. No, he stands in the middle. Why? Because we are all his children no matter what we do or don't do. He doesn't want us killing each other off and doing, could you imagine two of your children doing these things, practicing witchcraft and sorcery, fighting each other, killing each other? Could you imagine your children doing this to each other and you being the parent, sitting here having to watch that and deal with that? How, you see what I'm saying? You don't want to choose between your children. You love them both the same, right? So when God sees us doing all these things, this is the way he is. He sees it, he looks and he sees us doing these things, and he's like, they're both my children. They're both in the wrong in some way. If they're both fighting each other, you need to stop doing that. You need to stop, this is like a parent when the children are fighting, they tell them, you don't do this and you don't do that, and y'all both make up and you stop it. This is what this is. So extraordinary outcomes begin with small obedient steps. David's first act as king was not war, it was not conquest, it was not expansion, it was sending a blessing. Extraordinary leader starts with extraordinary kindness. Now, we're going to look at these personal applications. Hebron seasons is not small, it is strategic. God is positioning you quietly, not publicly. This is how extraordinary destinies begin. You may be overcoming more than you realize, your environment, your responsibilities, your lack of support, financial pressures, emotional weights, spiritual warfare. These are just some of the types of pressures that David overcame, and maybe you, or me, before your elevation. So this is what it would look like. Your extraordinary calling requires extraordinary restraints. Just like David, you don't chase validation. You don't force doors, meaning it's open for you. You don't retaliate, and you don't rush God. This is why your rise will be stable and long-lasting. It will not be swift, and then you get it, and then everything fall apart just as fast. This is why you see a lot of people rise and fall. Boom, boom. Why? There was no stability there, Honor is your elevation key. Your ability to stay respectful even when hurt mirrors David's honor to a soul supporter. So this is how we have to still carry ourselves. I be trying. I'm like, Lord, help me, Jesus. Because I be like, listen, I be so sick of this. Because I feel like a lot of time people take you kindness for weakness all of the time. You know, they just think that they can get over, do whatever they want to do. You know, this is that and the third. I mean, and then if you was to lash out and do that, you know, but then God's going to get you. So you're like, But it's like, okay, but you get tired of it. I mean, you really, really do sometimes. And you be like, Lord, because if I do it, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. Lord, I need you to help me. But God is preparing us for an extraordinary influence between your teachings, your gifts, your spiritual, whatever gifts and talents that you have, you know, the lineage awareness, Heron tools are preparing you for a national level impact. So if you're in these type of seasons right now, pay attention to all of this. And if you're not, for future reference, make note, pay attention up to it, because if you're not there now, you may be in this type of a season later on down the line in your life. Remember, the seasons change all the time. So you got to be paying attention to when these type of seasons are happening, so that we can know exactly what happening, what God's showing us, what he's telling us, and what he's doing. So we don't get in his way. So two, we can be obedient and be paying attention and be prepared, you know. So I read Overcoming. That was August 14th. Did you see that? And then I read that one. And that's the 15th. So with that being said, we see a lot going on. I know David is probably tired because, honey, when I think about all his battles and the ones I've won, I'm like, I'm tired. Just think about it. We know what's coming. He just has to continue to hold on. God is going to do it. It may look like delay, stagnation. It may look like backwardness. But in due season, in due time. And remember what God says. It may look impossible. With him, all things are possible. And if he's doing these things and they're going to be extraordinary, it's extraordinary. So it may take a little longer because of those reasons. So we have to just hold on tight and wait on God to do it. And in the meantime, between time, keep holding on to his hand, stay in his word, and keep just doing what we need to be doing on our ends. It is not by our might and power. It is not even by our even own abilities, because it is God who's going to do it in us, you know, when the time comes. Because we can't get credit for abilities when it comes, you know, to certain things, because we're going to do what we do in the natural, but he's going to do what he do, you know, this stuff that we can't. And paying attention to those battles now, because there's a lot of battles we should not be fighting. And I myself had to learn that, because, you know, I was finding myself, just running up and down. It gave me these drops in my eyes, been acting crazy. It was my contacts at one point. It kind of messed my eyes up, but now I have to do those tears. So every now and again, I'm trying to see, and I can't really see because my eyes got dry. So I got to go and put some, they go to refresh on them. To put the, back in them. And it kind of makes it blurry for me to see sometimes. So you see me like this and like this, even with my glasses on. Oh, baby, no. I was like, Lord, can you let me see for real in the spiritual and in the natural? Because, honey, I ain't never been no 2020. Oh, and today I got to go out. I finally went and winding down myself. I went to the Hook and Reel. And then I had some other stuff going on. Some good, some, you know. So that was kind of cool. I needed a break. It was some stuff going on. And it just, I believe there's some stuff God is showing me that is going on. And for whoever is out there doing some stuff, God is revealing some stuff to me that I have to get taken care of. And I'll be having whatever's in my name, whatever folks is doing. I promise you it's not going to be good. Because I'm not about to be taking photos for anything that folks is doing. When I say that, I mean seriously. If anybody's doing anything, I promise you, behind my back, it's about to be unfolds, and I don't want to have any conversations about anything. And when I say that, I mean exactly that. I don't want conversations, whatever's being done. It won't be me in cuffs. I promise you that. It's not going to be me. And whatever folks is doing, I would advise you not to be doing it. I don't deal with the illegal stuff. I don't do it. I don't deal with a lot of, trying to insinuate or make people think that, someone else is doing this or that. And I don't do stuff like that. Because, I like to be on the up and up. Anything I'm doing is going to be in my name and my stuff, because I would never want to do that to people, you know. I would never want people, you know, I'm trying to get my life back together. And I keep telling folks, like, I'm trying to get my life back together. Don't be messing around with my stuff, because I'm you know, my credit, I'm trying to fix that. You know, I'm trying to do, and it's like God reveals things, and it's by accident, because I'm not looking for anything necessarily. I'm just looking to fix my own stuff. But in the process of that, other things are being revealed, you know. And last year, I remember when I went south, and I was down there, and somebody had went and they was trying to do something with my driver's license or something. And I was like, but it can only be people that know me, unless it's somebody who completely doesn't know me and just, you know, but for the most part, to be doing certain things. But like I said, you know, I'm just putting the FYI out here, because I've been doing FYIs about certain things too. But the FYI, I don't want no conversations. Like, I just don't. Because if nobody cared about me and how things, and it's a secret and everybody knows with me, then guess what? The secret's going to be on you. Because whenever everything is perfectly clear and I get it taken care of, and however the authorities or whoever handle it, that's what they're going to do. They're going to handle it. And no, I don't want to hear anything from anybody. You can talk to my attorney about it, because that's going to be the way it's going to go down. I don't want any conversations about anything. There will be no need for any conversations about anything. I'm going to clear what I need to clear for me. And whoever's doing whatever, I feel sorry for you, because I'm prosecuting, charges, whatever it may be, to the fullest extent of the law. I'm just not about to sit here and play with people. I mean, you know, especially if it's a toss-up between me and you. I love people to pieces, don't get me wrong, but the law is for the lawless, you know. And I'm not going to be made to look like I'm doing things that I'm not doing, and, you know, could possibly face jail time or different things for stuff that I'm not doing. You know, if stuff is in my name, or if they're spelling it a different way, or if they're doing, I'm not about to do that. So, you know, whatever it is, I'm just saying. So, yeah, just a heads up to anybody. It's going to suck to be you in a few. I promise you that. But I did go, to Hook and Reel today. And I did, as you can see, I done messed around, and it's about to start getting cold again. I was leaving my hair out, but I said I was put the wig back on just because I didn't feel like doing my hair. And I wanted something different. And trying to figure it out. But anyway. But bruised and not broken. I hope all is well. I hope everyone is just, you know, enjoying their weekend. I may put up, because I did put up Wine and Dine, Love Yourself, Take Yourself Out. Ladies, don't sit around for people to love on you and to take you out and to do things, get dressed, go out to eat, even if it's alone. Do what you need to do for you. You know, take care of you, love on you, you know. And say, even if you go out once a week, you take yourself out to eat, you know, get your hair and nails done. You know, you want self-care inside and out. You know, you want to love on you, you know, and you're supposed to. So, but with that being said, we are bruised and not broken. And I hope that this word was a blessing to you guys. It was a blessing to me. And I'm looking forward to this last part of the year. Guys, I don't know who all stuck to their, I started some things, and some things didn't go the way that I, you know, but still working on them. And those things will go to the top of my, for next year, but I'm still working them through. But anyway, you know, there's like a third, fourth quarter wrap up. This is what the second, third quarter of the year? Yeah, because every 3 months, I think, right? But anyway, recapping, paying attention. 2027 is coming. And we need to be trying to work out this and move forward. So, with that being said, be blessed. In Jesus' name, I hope that this word was a blessing to you guys. It was a blessing to me. And be blessed in Jesus' name. Bruised Not Broken. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And my Cash App link, I believe, is in my bio. And be blessed. And until the next word, amen.